Welcome to episode number 12 of the Farms of BC podcast. I'm your host, Jay Cack, and today Nav, Seacon, and I will be going into the 2023 mid-year update. There's a lot to discuss on this one, and we're bringing you all the data. Stay tuned. All right, Nav, we're in the mid-year of 2023.
Yeah.
We just passed June 30th here, and we're in July. Now, this is a little bit of a different episode because typically we wouldn't want to timestamp our podcast. We want to kind of keep them evergreen, but in this situation, it's a good time to actually review. It's a good time to kind of collect and see what happened throughout the year.
Yeah.
See how the first 6 months went, and what better time than a mid-year update, right? So we've actually created an internal sold report that we want to reference, and we're going to drop some stats here from the first 6 months that we've discovered. But overall, we only do an annual report, right? But if anybody is interested in a 6-month report, you can feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to provide that. We should probably start off with what happened this year, January 1st to June 30th. What do you think?
It's been a roller coaster. We've had some periods of the year that was really busy, and then we saw a couple periods throughout the year that were at a standstill. So every time, what I've noticed, the pattern I noticed was that every time there was a potential announcement for interest rate hike, about a week to a week and a half prior to that, you would see the call volume go down and the buyers would want to put it on a pause. And then the interest rate announcement would come and it would halt for about a week again, and then things would start ramping up again. Yeah. So that happened, I think, 4 times this year. We went through those periods within this last 6 months. And but yeah, that's kind of how it was this entire year. So in my 15 years of selling real estate, this is the first time I've seen a pattern like this that's so close apart. Usually you'll see that, the first half is really busy, second half is slow, or you'll see the last quarter of a certain year is slow, but the other 3 quarters are very busy. But how rapid it was for the changes of how the market was moving. It was fast and then it was slow. It was fast and slow. It was interesting to really go through that this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it feels like everybody kind of held their breath every time it was inching close to that date. It was like one day away. Everybody would just, let's just hold it, hold all the offers. Let's see what happens.
The Instagram announcements, it was hilarious when, the moment they increased the interest rate, I think every single mortgage broker, every single realtor would say, "Oh, increased interest rate." I was like, man, that day, I never wanted to look at any of my social media. It was like same thing over and over and over again. It was hilarious.
I mean, the news kind of does a good enough job if you got an iPhone, it's like blasted right on your first page, right? So that's the first thing you see anyways, and it's like, oh great, this is going to be the news for the day. But it is what it is, and it was important because it allowed a lot of people to really base their offers on it. It allowed them to kind of
negotiate accordingly.
How they're going to negotiate exactly. Sometimes people would try to get a deal done before that hits, and sometimes people would try to secure their rates, and they got 4 months to execute on those rates. So all these variables. Such a 2023 thing, I would think. And I don't know. It's one of those things we're going to come back to maybe in like 7-8 years in 2030 and be like, how was it?
It's funny because a lot of our clients, they've seen this in the 80s. So when the interest rate hit 17, 18%, they saw this. So for our generation to see this now, knock on wood, this is a once in a lifetime, and we don't see it again for a very, very long time, but it was needed at the same time, right? They needed to get things in control. Prices were just getting way out of reach. Money was cheap. People were taking more debt on than they should have, and I do see it naturally progressing where people are not just buying multiple properties. They're being very cautious in what they're buying. They're buying things with purpose. Investment aside, they're now aggressively looking at, okay, what's the cash flow like? Do I have a purpose in it? Am I buying a commercial building to put my business in? Am I buying a commercial office to put my office in? Am I buying a farm to actually do farming and do my build a house or live there? So we're starting to see that people want to see purpose more than just saying, hey, let's buy this because the market, it's going to go up. We saw a lot of people being reserved on that end.
And I think that's something that we also have to, do our due diligence on as well, and kind of really advise our clients, like, is this the right time for such a move? Because sometimes they think getting into farming is going to be a great way to make money or whatever the case may be. And a lot of the times it may not even float the new payments that are coming up with the variable rates that are happening. It's just, it doesn't make sense, right? So you kind of have to.
Well, that's why when we do our buyers consultations, it's very crucial that they lay out their full plan to us. And if we see that something's inconsistent, we always typically say, hey, farming is not for you, or this, like half the people don't even know what the bylaws are. So once they lay out their plan,
it doesn't make sense.
A lot of times it doesn't make sense. We actually tell buyers more than less not to purchase, because it's just not something that you're going to be successful at.
It's like anything else, like you invest in what you know, right? So I see a lot of the farmers that, are making these smart investments. They're picking up parcels nearby them and what maybe the case.
They're very strategic.
Very strategic because they know they can expand, or they're more efficient, they're close by. In those situations, absolutely go for it. Right?
But they've got a purpose.
Yeah.
So again, as long as you have that purpose, that's what I've seen the biggest purchases happen here in the last 6 months.
Now, total number of farms sold. I mean, we do Fraser Valley, Metro Vancouver. That's basically Richmond to Chilliwack primarily.
Right. Yeah.
In between that range.
All the cities in between that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen, sales have been down from last year. So the stats that we're going to be giving out here, this is in order from the most amount of sales that have happened in which city to the least amount of sales in every city. So this is from January to June. So Langley had the most amount of sales at 60 sales. Maple Ridge was at number 2 with 32 sales. Abbotsford with 31 sales was number 3. Number 4 was Chilliwack with 30 sales. Mission with 12 sales at number 5. Number 6 was Pitt Meadows at 11 sales. 7 and 8 was tied between Surrey and Richmond at 8 sales. And number 9 was Delta with only 1 farm sold between January and June. And the one city that had no sales was Coquitlam, but Coquitlam also doesn't have a big farm footprint, plus no one ever sells there. It's very low inventory.
I mean, it's interesting because Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Maple Ridge, these ones had quite a few sales in there. But Langley just blew everything out of the water. Like,
Langley, I've been noticing the uptick in Langley over the last, I would say, 4 years. It started probably, I would say probably 2018, 2019, pre-COVID. Yeah. So COVID is 2020. So about 2019, we really started seeing a lot of people that were flexible from going from Surrey to Langley. And I think COVID just ramped that up even further. We saw a lot of people that couldn't afford in Surrey will accommodate to buy in Langley. And then vice versa in Abbotsford, people wanted to move closer to Vancouver. So they're like, oh, now let's make that jump over to Langley. So what I saw was in the Aldergrove area, especially, prior to 2018-19, Aldergrove was not a popular area. It was almost looked down upon, like, oh, who's out in Aldergrove? What's out in Aldergrove? Now we're starting to see a lot of people from Surrey move out to Aldergrove, a mass group of people that are moving out that way. And then vice versa, we're seeing a lot of people from Abbotsford coming over to Langley. So and there's a lot of inventory to choose from. You've got options. Abbotsford, Surrey doesn't have many options for the supplies are still low, and the supplies that are active, the price points are still quite high. Surrey, I can say, but Abbotsford, depending on the area, what I've noticed, obviously Huntington is probably the most popular, most expensive. The second in highest demand, I would say, would be Bradner, and the prices are really good there, especially for hobby farms, 5 acres, 10 acres. And then I would say Sumas and Masquite are quite equal, and those are all dependent on the buyer's needs, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's Langley is. I feel like people want to be in Metro Vancouver on paper, and that's the borderline is Langley is the end, right? And then it's the Fraser Valley after that, which is Abbotsford, right? So they kind of want to be on that brink, and you also went down that route, right? So you're in that ballpark now. Yeah.
I love it out there. It's nice. It's quiet. No traffic.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Now, in terms of total number of sales, we actually saw 193 sales.
That's right.
Cumulatively.
Yeah,
right?
so
Which is
so combined all those cities that we just mentioned, it was about 193 sales combined.
right.
And what we saw was the average sales prices were between 1.5 and on the high end 3 million. And majority of the farm acreage sizes we saw that were sold were between 1, but more in the 4 and 5, up to about 10 acres. Those were the bulk of the sales. This is the first time in a very long time where I saw the least amount of 20 plus acres sold, or 15 or 16 acres sold. They're all still sitting on the market, or they've expired, or they're planning on selling it in the future years.
Yeah, they're struggling to sell right now because it's just the price points, right?
Well, I think what I've noticed, it's price points, and it goes back to purpose.
Yeah.
A lot of people were buying these farms for either investment, or they were buying it for to build a house, or for hobby farms. And I think people can get that within 10 acres.
Yeah.
And especially like you said, with price points, you're spending an extra $1 million for 20 acres. I know it doesn't seem like a lot more, but because you get 20 acres versus 10, but people are looking at their budget and they're saying that's still $1 million more. I'm okay and happy with 10 acres versus 20.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
That's right.
All right, so I guess we should discuss interest rates now.
Yes.
I mean, there's been a lot of variance in interest rates. That's kind of been the theme of the year, right? So
Yeah.
I know there was 4 pauses, or 2 pauses and 2 actual interest rate increases.
I think there was 1 pause and 3 hikes.
Okay.
So I think it was so they announced the 4.5 hike this year, and then they took it to 4.75,
Right.
and then they paused, and then they took it to 5.
Yeah.
And the next announcement will be, well, that was July, and then the next announcement will be in September.
So where will we see these by the end of the year?
You know, everyone has their own, like you can go to, I don't know how many social media platforms, or you can go to news platforms, or you can do research with different economists. Everyone has their own prediction and guess, and that's what it is. It's either going to go up or it's going to stay the same. I think we've ruled out that it's going to be dropped this year. My personal gut feeling says that it's going to stay at this rate, but I feel that they're going to keep it here for a very long time. Instead of, my personal feeling earlier this year, or at the end of first quarter, I felt that they probably would have come down by the end of this year. But I feel that now I feel that this is a good interest rate where people are being very cautious on their spending. People are being very cautious in where they're investing. They are trying to keep their debt levels low. And I think if they can keep this for a longer period of time, they'll get to that 2% inflation rate. Now, it was good that we just heard a couple of days ago that the inflation rate came down to 2.8, but you know, there's different factors and variables within that, and that can change very quickly. But I think come September, my gut feeling says that they should hold it, and they should hold it until we now slowly get to that target of 2%. That being said, once we reach that, I don't see them significantly decreasing interest rates.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to be very cautious bringing them down. So they're gonna have to lower them for a quarter, and maybe run it for 2-3 months, and then maybe another quarter, run it for 2-3 months. The only thing that can affect that is if there's a big recession. When there's a big recession, they have no choice but to bring them down this fast.
What do you think about 2024?
I think 2024, the first 2 quarters, they'll keep it the same. I think the second half of 2024 is when they're going to really start looking at, okay, have we reached I think they'll reach their 2% by then. Yeah. And I think they'll slowly start bringing it down. My prediction for 2024 is I don't see them bringing it down less than 4.5. So they're at 5. So I think they might only do the entire year 2 decreases. I don't see it coming back to 4. I don't see it coming back to 3.5. I think that will probably happen 2025, 2026.
I agree. I think that 4 or 5% range is going to be the new normal.
Yeah, I think even if they can bring it down up to 2026, 2027, back down to the 4, I think that's a healthy medium.
Now there's a qualifying rate on top of that. There's 2% to just qualify, right? So,
That's right.
Do you think that's still justified? Do you think that's still necessary?
Yes. Could you imagine if
there's a lot? I mean, if they didn't have that,
could you imagine what would happen out there right now?
Right.
You know what? As much as it's harder now, so it's difficult. People have to qualify at 7 to 8%. That being said, it's the one thing that prepared us for this.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's a safety net. If people cannot qualify and they're tight qualifying with that additional 2%, that's your cushion. That's the government's buffer for something that happened like in the US in 2008.
Even this, nobody was prepared for this 2, 3, 4% increase, whatever.
What I do see that could happen, which are already starting to happen now, depending on what your loan to value ratio is, I could see them for some people extending amortization. Like they won't extend amortization if your loan to value is like 75% loan to value. But if you're at 50% loan to value or maybe even 25% loan to value when the bank knows they've got enough cushion in there, I could see them extending amortization for people.
Are you thinking 40 years?
I think 40 years is...
It might just be there now. Yeah, that might be.
Or even 35.
Yeah. Because we're already at 30 pretty easily.
They're at 25. They're giving out 25 30s.
I got a 30 myself. So
Yeah.
it's, that's pretty common now. But 35, 40, I think that could be the new norm now.
Yeah, I could see that.
So is it a good time to buy?
I think it's a good time to buy, again, if you have purpose. We are still doing a lot of deals. Again, they are between 0 to 10 acre sales. A lot of the bigger stuff that's 10 plus acres, they're very slim buyer. There's not many buyers out there, but the inquiries are very low too. I think if you're 10 plus acres and you have a house, there's still an appetite and a demand out there for buyers. But if you're more bare land, it's harder to qualify. You're putting 50% down. Those have been challenging. So again, if you still have purpose, this is probably the best time you're going to buy because we are at the rock bottom prices. I haven't never seen 5 acres as low as I'm seeing them now.
Now's the chance to
get in,
price aggressively,
But I see the bounce back coming very aggressively here in the next 6 months to a year. So you're at your low. Yes, you might sell your other property a little bit lower, but you're going to be buying low as well, right? So as long as you've got a purpose, this is a great time to buy.
Well, I guess that leads into, is it a good time to sell?
Yes. Now, again, I think if we've been doing anywhere from, I think 4 to 5 market evaluations for farmers every week for the last 6 months. And the conversation at the table always has been, is this the right time? First thing we do is we determine price. Are they willing to sell at market value? No, that's the first thing. Second thing I always tell them to do is look at inventory that you're planning to buy. So if you're planning to buy, say, a condo, townhouse, a detached house that has a lot of inventory out there, the prices are going to stay quite flat. And they're probably not going to go up as much, right? Because you're on that lower price point. Then if you're buying that type of product, it's good to sell now because those will also go up even if you sell at today's market value. Now, if you're going to buy something that's a specialty product that does not have a lot of inventory out there, those prices will not come down, and they probably didn't come down. What we saw was anybody moving up north, Okanagan, on the island, those prices did not come down. And the prices here did come down. So the disconnect is so big, right? So if you're planning to move out there, you need to find a local realtor out there that you're working with that can start giving you knowledge and information about the type of product you're looking for and is it even available? And then make that decision, hey, okay, yeah, we'll sell. Because if it's not available and you're going to sell low, I'd rather you wait till next year and then make that decision, right? Because then at least we know that the prices will go up by early next year, and then you can get that bump, and there'll be at least you get that bump, and then you're still going to be in an aggressive market buying. So the sellers, it comes down to what their plan is, and the conversations I'm not having is, oh, this is market value, let's list. This is market value. Your expectation is up here. If your expectation's not down here, and you don't have a plan, then you should not be selling.
I feel like a lot of their prices are kind of skewed towards that peak that we just saw recently come.
No, I think they're off that now.
Yeah.
The conversations I've been having, majority of them understand that those days are done.
Yeah.
It's just moving the puzzle. It's how do we get from selling this and getting into the next play of our life, right? Next chapter of our life.
That's right.
So it has that move has to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then still stay. Now, that being said, there's some people that can afford to hold on. So they have to sell, so we sell. So we price it sharp, and we do that. And then there's some people that it might be a partnership thing. They have different paths, and they're like, well, that's okay if it's our goals. We'll do something else with the funds, right?
And regardless of the market, there's life goes on. There's always people that are having to exit. There's always people that are retiring. There's always people that are passing on.
Passing away. We've seen a lot of estate sales happen here in the last year, right?
So it's a pro and a con for everybody. I mean, but it's same as usual. I mean, there's opportunity out there.
That's right.
If you're downsizing, you can downsize, and if you're going up, you can go up. Yeah.
I think the key thing is really meet with a specialized agent that's in that field of what you're looking to buy and sell, and create a plan. Just don't go and just put something on the market for the sake of the market, right? Like I met a good family of 4 partners. They inherited 220 acres, and I had a meeting with them a couple of days ago, and they do want to sell, but the product that they're buying is at the all-time low too, but they still want that high price. So I explained it to them, are you okay if those other prices go up? They said, that's fine, but we need to get this amount in order for us to make sense. So we said, okay, let's not put yours on the market. Let's wait. Let's analyze the market in September, and then let's reanalyze it the first quarter of 2024. And then if we can get close to that number, then it's worth putting it on.
Well, any closing thoughts on the market?
I think overall, we're gonna see this same roller coaster, these ups and downs for the remainder of the year. Again, just plan as much as you can. Discuss with your family. Have the right people on your team. That's your banker with your finances, your agent that's selling. Depending if you're moving out of province or just out of the city into a different bigger city or a smaller city. Hire a local realtor out there to help you. So if that's the Okanagan, or if that's up north, or if that's on the island, really start gathering that information before you start selling. And then for buyers, man, there are a lot of deals out there. If you're thinking and you think that the market's going to come down further down, I don't see that I think we're at rock bottom prices. And we're starting to see now 5-10 acre pieces sell within 14 days. Anything that's price sharp, that they're selling within that time. So what that tells me is there's enough buyer pool out there that's just waiting. So when the buyer pool goes down, that's when we see prices go down. But things are still selling.
Awesome. Well, that really sums up the market update side of things. But, just getting into the sold report side of things, really getting into the numbers. I was hoping we could actually discuss each one separately.
Each city?
Yeah.
Okay.
So right off the bat, we got Abbotsford. This one had 31 sales between now and January.
Yeah.
And we actually had 12 just below 5 acres. And that was an average price point of $576,000 per acre. Let's say $500,000 an acre.
What was the average total last year?
Yeah, I mean, last year it was $677,000. So it's
down.
definitely down per acre.
Yeah.
And when you're getting into the 5 to 10 acres, you only got 6 of those sold, and those were closer to $360,000, $350,000 an acre, which is also down from $500,000 an acre
From last year.
From last year. So, I mean, there's a lot less sold of the 5 to 10, but it's definitely the 5 acres that are more,
selling.
Yeah. They're the ones that everybody's after. We still saw some 10 to 20s. We had 8 sold. You had those priced at about $194,000, roughly $200,000 an acre, and that's down from $275,000 an acre. But those are relatively stable prices for the last 2 years. When you're getting into the 20 to 30, there was none sold in that price point, and 30 we actually had 5. So 30 plus, we're actually looking at, the 50 acres, the 40 acres and whatnot. And those are
60, 70
very,
acres.
very close to the 100,000 an acre mark,
Yeah.
about 95,000 an acre.
Yeah.
And that's down by 35,000. So it was 135,000 in 2022.
Yeah.
So even those large pieces, they did come down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see that as well, yeah.
Now on the side of Chilliwack, this one had 30 sales for the first 6 months here.
Yeah.
And 0 to 5 still takes the cake. It's 19 sales.
Yeah.
We got that priced at almost 700,000 an acre.
Yeah.
So there must have been some
Must have been some
nice properties in there
with some nice big
that are actually
houses.
selling.
Yeah, that's what takes the average up.
Yeah. If you're, a 3 acre, 4 acre with an estate home on it, it
Yeah.
really brings that price point up.
Yeah.
Even last year, 2022, was actually only 600,000, which is
Yeah.
crazy, right? So this year was actually more expensive.
Yeah.
But it can definitely be skewed with
For the averages, yeah.
5 to 10 acres, you only had 7 of those, about 400,000 an acre.
Yeah.
And 10 to 20, only 1, about 100,000 an acre. 20 to 30, also 1, about 82,000 an acre in that price point. So between the 20 to 30s, about 82,000.
What about 30 plus?
30 plus, now that, we only had 2 sales,
Yeah.
and they were about 80,000 as well.
So they're quite consistent with that, okay.
So 20
Yeah.
plus, you could say, is
Yeah.
pretty much 80,000 an acre right now.
80,000 an acre, okay. So that's why I was saying earlier, like you said, is it a good time to buy? We are at record low prices right now.
Mhm.
And that's what I see the difference of the prices jumping back up next year.
I'll also cover Maple Ridge real quick here. So this one had the second most sales. It was 32 sales,
Mhm.
right, since the last 6 months here. Almost the majority, like let's say it is 28 of them,
Yeah.
are under 5 acres, right?
Yeah,
So
like that.
everyone's looking for those deals right now for those 5 acre parcels. And this
Estate.
one, even these ones sold at 525,000 an acre.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome. Like, I mean, you're in the 2.5 million.
And I've been watching Maple Ridge quite carefully. A lot of the sales did have a lot of big homes on.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That's still down from 660,000 last year
Yes.
per acre. In the 5 to 10 range, you only had about 5 of those, about 300,000 an acre. 10 to 20, 4 of those, about 180,000.
Yep.
20 to 30, none, and 30 plus, none. So
Yeah.
Maple Ridge is definitely,
But it's all the smaller
it's
acreages,
all about the small acreages.
that we're selling.
And then if you go down to Mission,
Yeah.
Mission had 12 sold in
Yeah.
total, 6 months. Majority of them, 6, were actually under 5 acres, 300,000 an acre, even in Mission, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
5 to 10, 5 sold, and that was 200,000 an acre.
Wow.
Everything else, we're looking at maybe 1 more sold in the 10 to 20 range. That was only about 200,000 an acre as well.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's all in the under 10 range.
Under 10 range, okay. For Surrey, there was a total of 8 sales, and 3 of them were 0 to 5, and they sold for about 700,000 an acre. That's the average sales price. And last year it was about 700,000, so it's still stayed the same. Between 5 to 10 acres, there was 4 sales, and that sales price is between about 400,000 an acre, which is close to what it was last time. It was 375. So it's stayed the same. Surrey's been relatively the same. 10 to 20 acres, there was only 1 sale, and that averaged out about 202 an acre. And then 20 to 30, no sales. 30 plus acres, no sales. Majority of the sales in Surrey have been between 0 to 10 acres. And in Delta, unfortunately, there's only been 1 sale, and that was between 10 to 20 acres, and that averaged out at about 200,000 an acre. Langley, the biggest one, 36 sales from 0 to 5 acres, and that average has gone up. It was 650 last year, and the average now is about 725. And between 5 to 10 acres, there was 13, and that's about $336,000. But the average came down. Last year's average was 450. 10 to 20 acres, there was only 3 sales, averaging 175 an acre. No sales for 20 to 30, and no sales 30 plus.
It really seems like the 10 acres are shifting to the 5s.
Yeah, it's really the stuff, again, like we've seen now from every city. The bulk of these 156 sales, but the bulk of it's only under 10 acres.
Yeah. And
that's kind of the data that we've been kind of relaying to a lot of our sellers as well. That's good. For Pitt Meadows, there was only 11 sales, and three from 0 to 5 acres. 3 of them sold, and they're averaging about 800,000 an acre, and they were averaging last year close to about $1 million an acre. Again, a lot of stuff with nice big houses, and that brings that average quite high. 5 to 10 acres, there was 4 sales at 231 an acre. And 10 to 20 acre sales, there was 4 of them, and that average is about 200,000 an acre, and last year's was about 250 an acre. Richmond, there was 8 sales. Again, a lot of those were in 0 to 5 acres. There were 6 sales, and the average went up from last year. Last year was about $1 million an acre. This year's about 1.5 an acre. From 5 to 10 acres, there was 2 sales, and that average is at about 500,000 an acre, which last year was about close to 500,000 an acre as well. No sales from 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and 30 plus in Richmond.
That's amazing. The 5 acres are selling for $1 million an acre.
Yeah. Well, again, it's skewed because now this is Richmond. Yeah. They've got these from the older rules. Remember, they were building 15,000 square foot houses. Some of these 5 acres with these mansions sell for like 8-9 million. So it's going to bring the average up, right? Is it the true raw land value? It's not. It is the average, right? So that covers all the cities in detail.
It's amazing. Seems like the prices are kind of relatively the same, just slightly less than last year.
Yeah.
Some places.
So I'm just going to throw a number out there. From last year, I'm going to say then the total average last year sales prices to this year, they're probably down about 10%, which is not bad. I still remember when the peak of COVID, they drastically, all these property values dropped 20%. Yeah. So what I saw in and then that means we made up about 10% in 2022, and then it just stayed low. That extra 10% still low this year, right? So what I feel is going to happen for the remainder of the year is I think we're going to see that. I think the sales are all going to happen majority of the sales are going to happen between 0 to 20 acres, but highly on the 0 to 5 acres.
That's definitely the bulk of it. And no, it all makes sense. At the end of the day, it makes sense. I mean, it's kind of crazy where the prices are at right now in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But I think this is the trend. I think this is where it's going to kind of level out.
I think so. I think this is going to be a level up. This is the bottom of the bottom. And looking at the trends, looking at what things are starting to sell even in here in the last 2 weeks, with that data's not in here because that fell in July. Those I really feel are, what I'm seeing is stuff selling very fast. So when I typically see that, that means I know that that's the flat line bottom line. So from that point, that's the new benchmark. And things are selling really fast. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If anything's priced right, they're moving. But that's if they're priced right below 10 acres. I've noticed there's some really good products out there that are 15, 20, 25, 30 acres that are priced really well, but are not moving. Yeah. But still priced really sharp.
That's right.
Right? So now, but what I'm seeing is prior to 2020, prior to COVID, the norm used to be that these acreages, especially the bigger ones, would take 6 months to a year. Mm-hmm. What I'm starting to feel is getting that same feeling back that I feel that these properties that are the bigger properties, they're going to take 6 months to a year. 0 to 5 acres should take less than 3 months if it's priced right. And from 5 to 10 acres, they should take within 6 months. So that's the kind of budget. If you're a seller, that's the kind of timeline you should be planning from what I'm seeing out there. Yeah.
Well, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, any last thoughts? I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Overall, it's going to be. Look, the markets continue to go up. They're going to continue to go down this year, depending on people's psyche out there and what the media is putting out there. But overall, I feel that, there's still a massive supply shortage. Mm-hmm. You look at some of these sales that have happened. They're still not good. There's still not enough good product out there. Mm-hmm. So that tells me that when the swing comes back and the interest rates start adjusting, my gut feeling says that the prices are going to skyrocket up to at least back to COVID prices. And I'm going to throw a prediction out there. I think it's going to probably be till the end of 2024, we will reach at the height of COVID prices.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that's quite aggressive, but all signs are pointed to that, just due to supply. Has nothing to do with what interest rates do, or, well, it does, and to an extent, if they keep them leveled, or even if they start hinting them coming down a little bit, which I'm hoping by the end of 2024, and I'm thinking that's what will happen. I think we'll hit pre-COVID prices by the end of that time.
Well, we're only 6 months in, and we got another 6 months to go for 2023, and I'm kind of excited to do this again at the end of the year and see where it lands.
It's going to be interesting to see those numbers again. Yeah.